What's up, everybody? Troy Cartwright here. After much promise and a little delay, we are here today with our Q&A episode. These questions were fantastic. If you want to submit a question of your own, you can do that at tenuretowne.com. And if you want to dig in a little deeper, you can do that by joining the Tenuretown community, which is also at tenuretowne.com. How high do you think you could ollie?
I can ollie pretty high.
I never learned to ollie.
I could ollie over this.
It's one of the great regrets of my life.
If I was skating again, I could ollie over this. I could ollie over that.
You think I could learn?
Yeah. You could. It would probably take a really long time.
Like if I practice an hour a day, you think I could do it in a week?
No.
You don't think I could learn to ollie in 1 week?
I think you could, but yeah, I mean you could, but it would be like barely.
An hour a day?
Did you ever skate? Like, do you have any kind of board memory control?
None.
Yeah, I think
I was a blader, dude.
I think it would take you. Really?
I loved to
You
blade.
did rollerblading?
I loved to blade, bro.
Hey, this is the...
Oh, no.
Oh, wait. No, they're all there now.
Oh,
you got a lot of questions.
all right, everybody.
What's
Welcome. Welcome to the Q&A episode live. We're live from Ben's basement
From
today.
my basement.
We make a lot of magic in this basement. That sounded weird.
A lot of music in this basement.
There's been a lot of music made in this basement.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're here.
Just want to jump into these question boys. It's been a while since we've done one of these.
Yeah, we meant to do this a lot earlier, and life got in the way.
But we got some time for some more great questions to come in, so
That's true.
kind of worked out.
Yeah. All right, let's do it. First, what's the first question?
All right. First question is from Elias. If you were in Nashville but lost all of your connections and identity, how would you start from scratch? What would you do in that first month to try and be a writer in the music scene?
Are we assuming I still have my songs?
I think it's like if you have your whole catalog still?
God.
Say everything's gone. But I mean, you still know that you're like a good writer and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
You're starting from square one.
Okay.
No connections, nothing. Where are you going right now?
I guess the first thing I would do is, that's been the first week just trying to write a bunch of great songs. If I had no songs.
Yeah.
Gotta have great songs. And then I would just start ripping rounds. I'd just show up to every round.
How do you know like where the cool rounds are or rounds that you can get into?
I would just get on the internet and I would find any round I could. You go to one round, you're going to find
another one. Yeah.
You know? And then I think if you have great songs and you play rounds, like you'll figure it out pretty much immediately. I think that's a mistake a lot of people make. So they go to rounds, they get frustrated. It's like you gotta play them some great songs.
Mm.
And sometimes you find out your songs aren't that great. And that can be a tough pill to swallow. But it's okay. Just write some more.
Yeah.
Because when you write a great song and then you play it in a round or something, you'll know. Because everyone will know. And they'll be like, whoa, I want to write with you or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long do you think it took you to get to that point?
Where it was good?
Where you were like playing a song, because you probably first start writing songs and you're like, these are the best songs in the world. And then you go out and play them and you're like, okay, wait, maybe not. But you keep going.
Yeah.
And like when were you like sitting at a round and you were like, all right, I'm feeling good about what I'm playing right now?
I very vividly remember, well, it shouldn't take this long, so I don't mean for this to be discouraging, but I wrote my first song when I was 14.
Mm-hmm.
And then probably when I was 23, I played in Dallas. There was like a songwriter night. And I had a few songs that I thought were pretty good. And then I went to the songwriter night and I didn't know anyone there.
Mm.
And I just showed up, waited my turn. This was not a round. This was like a circle. There's like 15 people there. And I just remember I think I played this song called Coffee in the Morning and Whiskey at Night, which was one of the first songs that I wrote that was kind of in that country singer-songwriter space that I knew was a very well-written song. And yeah, I mean, it worked. I mean, you could just see, oh, this is working, because the other songwriters are, they're checking you out.
Yeah.
Looking at you.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. It's pretty sick.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, just keep going. You need like 300 of those.
Yeah.
It's not just one.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part.
And I feel like you go from there, meet those writers.
Mm-hmm.
Odds are some of those people are going to have publishing deals. You start writing with them.
Yeah.
Then you have songs in catalogs. You get enough songs in those catalogs. Those publishers probably end up reaching out at some point. I don't know. I feel like it's not like, it's hard and it's probably a long road, but like it's not necessarily crazy complicated if you had to start from scratch.
No, it just might take a while.
Yeah.
It's going to take a while.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, that's awesome. Sometimes you get lucky, but I would just expect that it would take years, at least a year or two to just get on somebody's radar.
Yeah.
But a lot of people have the goal of like, I need to get a publishing deal. And I get that. But your goal should really be, can I write a great song that moves people? And if you're doing that, the rest will. A publishing deal is like a symptom of success. It's not the goal, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
Well, cool. All right. Next question here is from Haley. Hey, Troy, I want to pursue a career as an artist, but my voice is not very country. Do you know the main differences between the music industry in Nashville versus LA? Also, you talk about the 11 to 4 shift a lot for songwriters. Does the same go for artists as well? Thanks so much. Love the pod.
Awesome. As far as your voice not being country, without hearing it, I don't know. I don't know what you're saying. Because you don't really have to have a country voice, whatever that is, to like exist in Nashville.
100%.
As far as the difference between Nashville and LA, I think we've talked about it before. I have not spent any meaningful time in LA, so I don't feel very qualified to answer the question in that way. But I do know that the people that I know that have moved here from LA do talk a lot about how just the songwriting culture in Nashville is different. And I'm guessing here, but I think that the main reason why Nashville is different than LA is that Nashville is much smaller. So it's much more concentrated. Just literally in terms of physical location, there's not that many bars that people go to. There's not that many, we talk about songwriter rounds, right? It's like there's a few that happen every week and they're always in the same place. And if you're a young songwriter or a young artist just getting started, like that's, you're going to meet people that way.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure that exists in LA. I'm just not familiar with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What was the other part of the question?
Yeah. The other half of that question is, you talk a lot about the 11 to 4 shift for songwriters. Does the same go for artists as well?
Oh man. If you want to be an artist, 11 to 4 is not enough.
Yeah.
That's just for writing songs. If you want to be an artist in today's world, then you basically just have another shift that's from 5 to 9 or something,
Or from like 5 p.m. until 10 a.m. the next day. And then you write again.
Yeah.
I feel like you're never not thinking and not working on your artistry.
I mean, being a songwriter is certainly all consuming, but it can be a nice lifestyle. It's a very free lifestyle because really you're just trying to stay inspired. So you're writing 11 to 4 and then you're trying to find cool ideas.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of ways to do that. And one of the best ways to do that is to just live your life. But being an artist takes so much more time because you're having to make content. You're having to do meetings. You're having to, think about branding and you're having to go on the road. I mean, all of these things are just going to take up all of your time. I think if you really want to make it as an artist, it has to be all consuming for a while, you know? I mean, I think maybe eventually you can find a way to let your foot off the gas, but it's definitely hours and hours every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a big, I don't think a lot of people maybe don't think about it, you know, how much time it takes, but it's more than a full-time job being an artist. And, you know, you see these people out there, you know, like you think about these mega superstars, like an Eric Church or a Morgan Wallen or something. And, you know, I don't think people realize like how hard those guys are working constantly all the time. And they have huge teams.
Sure.
You know, but even the people that are coming up, and I don't know Warren Zeiders personally. I never met the guy. But it seems like he works incredibly hard. He's always got content out. He's always playing shows. And I don't know. That was a really random example that I just thought of. But,
sure.
You know, if you want to look at a blueprint, just find an artist that you like and then try and reverse engineer what their day probably looks like. And, you know, think about, is that for you?
Yeah.
Because it's...
Well, I feel like I've even noticed, like you're saying, like even if you have like a huge team behind you, like even if you have a huge team behind you, they're going to be working alongside you like as hard as you're working. So say you do even, because I mean, there's a lot of people that get signed, artists, you know, and then maybe don't put in all that extra time that one would think that, you know, they should be putting time in for or whatever. But it's like, oh, I have a team now, they're going to do it for me. But like,
that's a trap.
Even once you get, exactly. Like if you're waiting for someone else to make the first move, like they're waiting for you to make the first move, and then everyone's just kind of sitting there and nothing's happening. And then it's like you have to be constantly working overtime all the time, and you have people around you to help, like, you know, so that you have tasks for them to be able to do, and you can like delegate that to other people that are working for you.
Totally.
But like just having that label or whatever behind you doesn't mean you're not going to be working.
No, not at all. I mean, you have to work harder. And I think as an artist, when you first sign or whatever, I mean, depending on what you had going on, that's the time where you actually have to turn the gas all the way up, you know, and do everything you can. And it's hard. It's hard work, but if you do it, it's pretty rewarding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, and aside for the first half of this question of wanting to be an artist but not country, there is a ton of music that happens here and gets made that is not country music. Like an unbelievable amount. There's a huge pop scene here. A ton of people from LA come here and do rights all the time. This is a huge, it's just, there's just so much music happening. There's a big R&B scene here.
Yeah.
There's a pretty big rap scene here. Like this music just gets made here. So just because you don't, you know, sing country music doesn't mean you can't come here and write.
Yes. That's
songs.
That's a great tagline for Nashville. Music gets made here.
Yeah. Not just country music.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, next question here is from Jeff. Troy, I know that you recorded just a single vocal take for Over You by now. It's flawless. How often are you able to get into that zone? What are some of your tricks of the trade, if you are cool with sharing, to stay in such a real place? So truly happy to have discovered your podcast and your inspiring music.
Oh, thanks, Jeff.
It's a pretty great question, Jeff.
Yeah, I appreciate it. As far as that song being one vocal take, and he's referencing my song Over You by Now that I put out a couple months ago. That doesn't happen very often, I would say. But I knew that take was great. And I don't think we ever tried to beat it because it was just right.
Yeah.
And I mean, recording vocals is so important. I mean, it's probably, in my opinion, the most important thing of the song. So as far as getting in the headspace, I think it's just trying to close your eyes or whatever and really feel whatever emotion it is that you're trying to sing about. And usually for me, I found that when you're recording a vocal, it is best to record the vocal when you are most inspired. And that's typically right when the song is the freshest.
Yeah. That's huge.
Yeah. And that's why I think a lot of demo vocals are so great, because you don't really know the song yet, right? Because
just happened.
It just happened. So you're doing the take, and your mind, your intuition will automatically kind of fill in all this different information that you might not have thought of because you're inspired. And I think as much as you can capture that magic, the better,
Yeah.
Because sometimes you go back later and try and recut a vocal and you're chasing what you had. And sometimes you have to, that's just part of it. But, it's definitely a skill to kind of try and get your mind back to that place where you're the most inspired.
Yeah. Cause the second you start, I don't know, it's weird. People record vocals a lot differently, but like, I know like what we'll normally do, like if I'm tracking a vocal for you, you'll kind of just sing the whole thing down like 2 or 3 times. And then that'll be like what we pull from, like that's our comp. And then there's some people who get into like, okay, well I want to do this line
right
like 15 times, next line 15 times. And then we like find, the best ones out of those. And like both are completely,
they both work.
Yeah. That's the zone for some people is where they just like zone in on like a single line. But I have noticed it just seems like, either whether that's really fresh, whether that's the demo vocal or whether that's the first like couple takes, feel like the more fresh it is, the less you're thinking about it.
Yeah.
And the less you're critiquing yourself and getting in the way of your own head and just
or you don't know yet that you keep messing up this one section.
Yeah.
So and I think that really depends on the vocalist too, because
totally
I'm just a very energy driven, I'm a big vibes guy. So I struggle to do things. It's hard for me to do things when I'm not inspired, if that makes sense.
Totally.
So a lot of times when I start cutting the vocal for the first time, I'm the most inspired. Those first few takes, I'm the most inspired. And then after that, I'm, my inspiration well is drying up. So, but that's not everybody.
Yeah. It's great. All right, we got another question from Danielle here.
Okay.
How do publisher meetings happen? Everyone talks about how they started meeting with / talking to their publisher, but usually fail to talk about how they were able to get a meeting with them in the first place. It feels like an impossible task at the moment.
Gotcha. Don't lose faith, Danielle. I know that it can seem impossible to get on a publisher's radar. I remember the first publisher I met, which I think I've talked about a bunch of times on this podcast, but it was Jake Gear. And he was over at Seagill at the time. From the time I met him to the time I got my first publishing deal offer, it was probably 2.5 years.
Wow.
I mean, it was a really long time. And he never offered me a deal. That was just the first publisher that I met that would listen to my songs.
Yeah.
And so I think one of the best ways that you can meet a publisher is just by going to stuff. Try and find, a round that you can go to. Maybe you'll meet some publishers there. A lot of times the way you get on a publisher's radar is you meet another writer who happens to be signed to that publisher. And if you guys are writing great songs together and they get turned in, the publisher will be like, hey, who'd you write this with?
Yeah.
That happens a lot.
Yeah.
But when it seems impossible, I totally understand that feeling. And you do just have to be patient. But as you go on and as you write more songs, and hopefully write with more and more people, you'll kind of find the people you're getting great songs with. And then, if they're great, you will you will appear on someone's radar.
Yeah.
Just might take a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how I've had any kind of contact with any publishing companies. It's just like, even just like being a producer.
Yeah.
It's like I was cutting demos for you.
Yeah.
And then through that, I think, even just me also just independently producing a couple other things, some of those, if I'm a producer, or if you're a producer in town or whatever, and you're producing tracks, like a lot of times you're going to have more than one writer on a song. That track is going to go into multiple different catalogs.
Right.
And then if your name comes up on a bunch of stuff and it's good, like it's cool stuff, then like they'll reach out or something,
Yeah. It will
just like repetitions and good work.
Yes.
Will be recognized because they're always on the lookout for more people.
Yes. If you are doing great work, people will beat a path to your door. I promise, and it just takes a little time.
Yeah. Usually a lot of time.
Yeah.
Okay. Another question from Brian. My daughter is 18 years old, college freshman, studying contemporary music and performance and entrepreneurship. She wants Nashville following graduation, but has a few years to go. Any recommendations for a summer in Nashville supporting songwriters and being exposed to the ecosystem?
Yeah, if you're in school, hopefully, I guess he didn't say what school.
Yeah, college freshman studying contemporary music. So, I mean, I'm sure there's, first of all, probably internship programs through that college that you're going to have to do. That's what I had to do. And through my college, I got it set up at like a studio here that I worked for like a couple semesters.
Yeah,
that would be a huge one.
Yeah, internships are huge. In the music industry, internships are the number one way to kind of get your foot in the door if you're starting from absolute zero.
Yeah.
And I think whatever internship you get, try and get one in an area that interests you. But also, if you can't find one in an area that you're super stoked about, any area is good. Proximity to the music business is great. So maybe you want to be a publisher, but I don't know, you get an internship at a booking agent or agency or something like that. I think the best thing that you can do is just find a way to get close and then do a great job. Just work the hardest you can, try and prove yourself useful. If you can find a way to be useful and be reliable and be present, you will, first off, meet a ton of other people that are in the same position as you or in positions of power that can hire you. And believe it or not, there's a lot of incompetent people in this business. So if you are
competent
and useful and smart, people will be desperate to work with you.
Yeah.
So that's my advice.
Yeah.
But what do I know?
Yeah. Is there any like specific recommendations? I don't know.
No, I mean, my first internship in the music business was in mechanical royalties in New York City. That had nothing to do with Nashville or songwriting. Not really.
Yeah.
But I did learn a lot. I learned a lot about what I didn't want to do. And I met a lot of people. And it's funny because even now, 10 years later, a lot of those people that I met in that internship still kind of come around. There's a guy I used to work with who is like a higher up at YouTube now. There's a guy I know that works for a big like indie music distribution company. I keep up with them a little bit, but there's always situations down the road where you're like, oh, I kind of know this guy.
Yeah.
And that, is helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just planting seeds, dude.
That's right. It's just a big network, and you never know when, you're going to need to tap into the network.
Yeah.
But it's always very helpful
100%.
to have one. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Blake asks, as an artist, not in Nashville, is it okay to reach out to producers about songs you've written, or is that overstepping? Thanks.
Do you think he means like if you see someone that produced a song that you liked, is it okay to reach out? I know we're reading between the lines here a little bit.
No, I think that's I think that's it. Like if oh, about songs that you've written. Gotcha. So like sending maybe producers songs that you've made.
Oh, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that blindly. Whenever people send me songs sometimes, like, hey, I wrote this, will you listen to it? And I generally can't or won't do that because you're kind of opening yourself up to like some weird liability, right? If someone's like, well, I sent him this song and then a month later he wrote a song called this.
Sure.
You know, and I don't worry about that stuff too much. But typically a better way, I guess, to go about doing something like that is just posting your work and letting people interact with it. And then, for example, if someone messages me and is just like, hey, I like what you do, like whatever, great work. A lot of times I'll go check out their profile, you know, and if they got music on there and it's good, then I'm more inclined to be like, oh, hey, this is great, you know, keep going, or this is a cool song, or, you know, if it really, you know, knocks me out, then I would definitely want to work with them.
Yeah.
You know, so that, but as far as reaching out to people, I think a much better way is if you like someone's work that's a little further up the ladder than you, then just tell them. No one is ever upset that like someone thinks that what they did is good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I would, but don't expect too much. But that kind of goes back to some of the advice that we've given on past episodes and that past guests have given. It's like so important to have your work out there that is, you know, digestible on Instagram or whatever, so that when you do reach out to someone, they can kind of check you out, and, you know, you never know what can happen after that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Do you agree?
I think so. I feel like that may happen a lot where people send their music to other people, and I feel like it's a very low rate of people actually on the other side of that clicking on it and listening to it.
Yeah, it's just too okay. If you were trying to, you know, shoot your shot with somebody in a romantic way, you probably the very first time you contacted them wouldn't lead with like, I would like to take you out to dinner.
Yeah. That
right?
is such a great analogy.
You would say, hey, you know, maybe you'd like a photo. Maybe, and then you would say like, I don't know, wait for them to post something on their story and like respond to it. But you wouldn't just immediately go for the ask.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you know, it's like, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Got to warm somebody up a little bit first.
Because there's absolutely a chance that you'll have to share that with somebody. But
yeah,
having a little bit more of a relationship there will probably, first of all, give you better advice on the back end.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? If that's what you're looking for. Like, and then second of all, they'll probably actually want to listen to it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's up, everybody? Producer Ben here. Thank you guys so much for listening to the first half of this Q&A episode. We had a lot of questions from y'all, so we decided to divide this up into 2 episodes. So if your question did not get answered, make sure you tune in next week. On Thursday, we will be dropping the second half of this Q&A. So thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you next Tuesday for the regular episode and next Thursday for the Q&A. Thanks.